It was a typical Tuesday evening when Mark's world began to crumble. He had just returned home from work, exhausted and ready to unwind, when he noticed something odd. His wife, Sarah, was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. Everything seemed normal, except for one small detail. Her phone was lying on the counter, and it buzzed with a new message. Mark wasn't the type to snoop, but something about the way Sarah glanced at her phone and then quickly looked away piqued his curiosity. He waited until she stepped out of the room to grab something from the pantry, and then he did something he never thought he would do. He picked up her phone. The message was from a number he didn't recognize. It read, "Can't wait to see you again." Last night was amazing. Mark's heart sank. A wave of nausea washed over him as he tried to process what he had just read. Was Sarah cheating on him? He put the phone back and forced a smile when she returned. But inside, his mind was racing. He had to know the truth. Over the next few days, Mark couldn't shake the gnawing suspicion. Sarah seemed different, more distracted, always on her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't share. She started coming home later from work, blaming it on meetings or unfinished projects. Mark's doubts grew into a quiet obsession. He began watching her more closely, looking for clues. One evening, when Sarah said she was meeting friends, he decided to follow her. From a distance, he saw her enter a cozy cafe and sit across from a man he didn't know. They laughed, leaned in close, and at one point the man reached across the table to hold her hand. Mark's chest tightened. He wanted to storm in and confront them, but he held back. He needed more proof. For weeks, Mark turned into a shadow of himself, secretly digging for answers. He checked Sarah's phone when she slept, finding late-night texts and vague excuses. He even found a hotel receipt tucked in her purse. The evidence piled up, undeniable. Sarah was having an affair. But the why haunted him. What had gone wrong between them? He loved her. Hadn't he shown it enough? Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. One night after a quiet dinner, he sat her down. "I know everything," he said, his voice steady but cold. He laid out the texts, the receipt, the cafe scene. Sarah's face went pale. She tried to deny it, but when he pressed her with the evidence, she broke down in tears. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she sobbed. She confessed she'd been seeing someone from work, a colleague who'd made her feel noticed, desired, things she hadn't felt from Mark in years. She said she'd felt invisible in their marriage, lost in his long hours and their routine life. Mark listened, his anger mixing with a pang of guilt. He'd been so caught up in his career, in providing for them, that he'd stopped seeing her, really seeing her. The affair wasn't just her betrayal. It was a symptom of something they'd both let slip away. The conversation stretched into the night. Sarah begged for forgiveness, swearing it was over with the other man. Mark didn't know if he could trust her again, but he also didn't want to throw away 10 years of marriage without a fight. They decided to try, to rebuild what they'd lost. They started seeing a therapist, peeling back layers of resentment and neglect they'd both ignored. It was messy and painful. Some days, Mark still saw that cafe scene in his mind, and the hurt flared anew. But slowly, they began to reconnect. Sarah opened up about her loneliness. Mark learned to listen, to be present. They went on dates again, awkward at first, but then warm, familiar. Months later, they weren't the same couple they'd been before. The affair had scarred them, but it had also forced them to face the cracks in their foundation. They were stronger now, more honest. Mark still carried the sting of betrayal, but he'd chosen to forgive. Not for her, but for them. As he sat with Sarah one quiet evening, her hand in his, he realized something. Love wasn't just the easy moments. It was the hard ones too, the ones they'd fought through together. And for the first time in a long time, he felt hope.